Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. I just saw the movie Creed, and that's a real good movie. It's a real good movie, especially when you know the history, the storylines that they're trying to fictionalize. In 1975, the world heavyweight champion, Muhammad Ali, decided to accept $1.5 million to fight a no-name fighter, a guy named Chuck Webner. Right? Now, Chuck Webner was a rough and tumble guy, but understand he was not a legitimate heavyweight contender at the time. He was a relative unknown. Now, in the ninth round of that fight, the fight was scheduled for 15. Chuck Webner actually drops Ali. But when you look at the replays, you realize that Chuck Webner stepped on Ali's foot and then hit him. And Ali, who couldn't move back because the other guy was literally stepping on his foot, hit the canvas. Now, according to legend, Webner then went over to his corner while Ali was on the canvas and said to his manager, "Al, start the car. We're going to the bank. We are millionaires." To which his manager replied, "You better turn around. He's getting up, and he looks pissed off." Right? Muhammad Ali then proceeded to be Muhammad Ali, punishing Webner over the remaining rounds, opening up cuts on both of Webner's eyes, breaking Webner's nose, and then, of course, dropping him in the last round for a technical knockout. Now, shortly after that, Sylvester Stallone comes up with Rocky, right? Understand, back then, Ali's big nemesis was Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier was your quintessential Philadelphia fighter. Understand, Philly back in those days had a bunch of rough fighters, right? Benny Briscoe, a few years earlier, almost beat Carlos Monzon. Right? Marvin Hagler lost to a Philadelphia fighter. I believe it was Bobby Boogaloo Watts. Well, anyway, in the original Rocky, the character Apollo Creed is clearly based on Muhammad Ali. Right? Everyone denies who the characters are based on because no one wants to pay anyone any money. Right? Stallone doesn't want to say, "Hey, I base this on that," because then the guys involved with that might ask for royalty payments. But let's just say it's clear that the Apollo Creed character was based on Ali, right? The whole theme behind Rocky is that, Apollo Creed is picking a no-name, just like Ali picked Webner, and that Creed doesn't expect a big fight, and then in the fight, he finds himself getting roughed up a bit. Right? Well, let's fast forward now to this show. Right? Creed, the movie. Now, let me say this. There's a big star that dominates the movie, swamps everyone else. And that star is the city of Philadelphia. Right? It's shocking how in Philly you feel. Right? They go into a Philly gym and the guys in the gym look like they're in Philly gyms. Right? In other words, they didn't get a lot of guys from LA and give them roles in this movie. No, the people in the movie look like they're from Philly. Right? It's so Philly based, when they're in the gym, you look in the ring and it's Gabe Rosado, the king, from Philly. Right? Let me go one step further. Let me say the fighters in this are all outstanding. Right? The movie doesn't really pub their appearances, but yet there you are watching Andre Ward fight like Andre Ward. Right? By the way, the Andre Ward sequence is important for gambling types because you'll notice the way Andre tilts his head and comes inside and is throwing body shots, and then you have to ask yourself, the obvious question that we want to know. You know, how would Sergei Kovalev handle this? Right? Ward gets inside effortlessly. I'm not going to give away the plot of the movie. But let's just say it's kind of crazy. The Gabe Rosado fight. As you watch the fight, Michael B. Jordan's excellent in the movie. He's excellent. But as you watch the fight scenes between him and Gabe Rosado, let's just say Rosado has the upper hand. Let's just say if you know Gabe Rosado and you see him land that many flush punches, you know that fight wouldn't have been continuing. Right? Of course, Tony Bellew is outstanding. Right? If I have one regret on this movie, it's just that they didn't give Tony Bellew more lines. Right? He is outstanding. Right? And let me say, if you're a Stallone fan, and I'm a Stallone fan, I'll tell you what, Stallone is really good. I mean, so good, you hope the Academy looks hard at him. Right? Because Stallone is really the unifying thread between the whole thing. Understand, without giving away too much of the plot, Stallone isn't syrupy here. Right? When the main character shows up, Stallone's not running to him and saying, hey, let me train you. Hey, let me be part of your team. That's not the plot here. Not by a long shot. Let me say, too, that for people who remember The Sopranos with James Gandolfini, Stallone has that Tony Soprano type thing going on where he's in a room and he's looking around at the people in the room and you're kind of thinking along with him. Right? That's how good he is. You can kind of see him looking at people around him. Sometimes there's an age gap. Right? He's kind of the OG in the scene. Right? And you can kind of see him kind of filtering things and, thinking it through even before he says his lines. Right? And so let me say, I was very impressed by this movie. Very. Let's talk about some of the other things that kind of mirror life. The main character is supposed to secretly have had a bunch of fights in Mexico. Now, it might shock some people, but did you know that middleweight champion Saul Alvarez actually secretly had a bunch of fights in Mexico? Right? According to reports, he won all of them. According to reports, and I invite the boxing press to question him on it. According to reports, he's a little bit upset that these fights aren't part of his record. Because as good as his record is, he believes his record should be even better. Right? Now, some of these fights are a little interesting because of Saul's age at the time. Right? Just understand, like Canelo, the main character here is supposed to have had some unreported fights in Mexico. Right? I thought that was interesting. Also, there's this whole dynamic, right, where the main character is supposed to be the son of a fighter. It kind of evokes shades of Floyd Sr. and Floyd Jr. You know what I mean? It's an interesting type thing. Also, like Ali, Apollo Creed was, let's say, a man about town. Right? If you research Ali's past, you're going to find out that he showed up to a press conference with a woman who was not his wife and stuff like that. Here, let's just say they even bring in Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon to talk about Apollo Creed, his legacy and how it's affected by the fact that he may have been a man about town. Right? It's really fascinating things. Let me say this too. Several actors give great performances. I don't know who the actress is who plays the love interest in this movie. I thought she's outstanding. I thought Wood Harris is outstanding as the guy running a gym in LA, right? Let me also say this too. You know, everyone everyone views Creed as soft because he's from the West Coast. I hope people understand that folks like Eddie Futch were based on the West Coast back in the day. Just food for thought. You know what I mean? Freddie Roach is on the West Coast right now. I know Philly views itself as the center of the boxing universe, right? You got a lot of elite Philly fighters out there right now ruling the roost, right? Danny Garcia is still unbeaten, and he's very Philly, right? But it is kind of funny how they always kind of look down on the main character in part because he's from, the West Coast. Let me also say, too, the Tony Bellew character, people will be happy to hear, is actually based in Liverpool in the movie, right? Hey, if you do more movies with the Bellew character, hey, why not show us a little bit about Liverpool, okay? You do a great job showing us Philly in all its glory, right? Hook us up in showing us a little bit about Liverpool. Let me also say, too, and I did appreciate this, the corners kind of reflect the countries that the fighters are from, right? The way the guys are dressed in Tony Bellew's corner is very British, right? So I'll say I was very impressed with this movie. I was expecting something a little bit more syrupy, a little bit cornier and stuff like that. The lead character has an edge to him that's excellent, right? The fight scenes actually involve real fighters. They have it, of course, in a real fight town. The ending of the movie, and I'm talking about the very end of the movie, could hardly be better, right? So let me just say, this is the best Rocky movie since Rocky 3, right? I'm a child of the 80s. I actually enjoyed Mr. T in Rocky 3. I understand I might I might be one of the few here online, but this is clearly the best Rocky movie since Rocky 3. Very strong all the way round. Real kudos to the boxers, the real boxers in the movie. Rosado, Bellew, Ward. I thought they all did a great performance. There's even a crazy scene where, believe it or not, there's a dust-up at a weigh-in. Anyway, and of course, the nickname for Tony Bellew's character is Pretty Ricky. It's kind of like a play on Pretty Boy Floyd in a way, right? They call him Pretty Ricky. Anyway, thumbs up from me. Let me hear your thoughts if you've seen the movie, or if there's any other movie out there that kind of catches your fancy, and if there's a part of this movie that really stood out to you. I hope you talk about it in the comment section to this video. Let me say this too, for hardcore Rocky fans, the name of Rocky's restaurant is Adrian. There's a scene where Rocky goes to the cemetery to, remember Adrian and Paulie. The gym they go to is Mick's Gym. In other words, if you have a full afternoon or a full day, I would recommend that you see the original Rocky before you see this film. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Thanks for stopping by.